Good afternoon. I am a general surgeon on faculty at the University of Michigan. And just so I don't sound like I'm harshing on the mothership, I should preface my remarks by saying that I think the University of Michigan is an amazing place to be. There's incredible people there, many of whom are leaders in their field. And the medical school is of similar high caliber. We attract the best and brightest students from all across the country and even the world. But it's hard to ignore the fact that when you look at all the medical students and trainees and faculty, there doesn't seem to be a lot of racial diversity. And in fact, Black and Hispanic students make up each only 6% of the student body at the medical school. And it's been like that for a decade. So what's the problem? Are there just not enough high-performing students from these demographics? I don't think so. I think the problem is that we haven't done a good enough job to find them and recruit them and prepare them for medical school. But to be fair to Michigan, this isn't just a Michigan problem. This is a national problem. So Black people make up 13% of the US population, and yet they only account for 6% of students at US medical school. And they only make up 6% of practicing physicians in the United States. Furthermore, they're only less than 3% of faculty at academic medical centers. And the numbers are not much better for Hispanic Americans. So the problem is that this lack of diversity among healthcare providers actually has real public health implications because it's directly associated with inequalities in both access to care and in the quality of care delivered to minority populations. So in 2002, the Institute of Medicine, which is the body that advises the government on health policy, they issued a report that was widely read and addressed this issue of racial healthcare disparities. And at the end of this 1,000-page report, the main recommendation was that we needed to increase the proportion of healthcare professionals that come from underserved populations. So fast forward now, we're more than a decade. Oh, that hurt. Okay, so fast forward, we're now more than a decade past that report. And what do you think's happened to the racial makeup of students entering US medical schools? Any guesses? Big change, little change. Yeah, nothing, zero, nothing has changed. So the question is, why is that true? And the reason is that we just haven't established effective pipeline programs to recruit these students and prepare them for careers in medicine. So with that in mind, we decided we would start our own pipeline project to reach out to students from underserved populations, get them excited and fired up for careers in medicine, provide them some mentorship, and give them some of the tools that they would need to be successful. And I should stop here and really say that it is the medical students at the University of Michigan who are the heart and soul of this program. They do all the work, they come up with all the big ideas, and then I get all the credit. Because, medicine's kind of a hierarchy, that's how it goes. But, yeah, kidding, it's terrible. And luckily, a lot of these students have had prior teaching experience, which is critical to our program because my level of enthusiasm is really matched only by my degree of cluelessness in how to deal with high school students. So that is really important. So our first step was to find a school to partner with. So we decided, early on that we wanted to work with high school freshmen. The 9th grade is a really critical transitional year. And several studies have shown that a student's performance in the 9th grade actually has a greater impact on whether or not they'll graduate high school and go on to college than any background characteristics or prior achievement. The other thing we had decided on pretty much right away is that we wanted to work with a school in Detroit. After all, even though we live in Detroit's backyard, and it is Michigan's most populous city, only a handful of our students come from Detroit each year. And let's face it, a lot of the news coming out of Detroit in the past few years has been negative, and we just wanted to write a different story. But we really had to find a school that not only served high-achieving students, but also had a sufficiently robust administrative structure that would support, a longitudinal pipeline program. So ultimately, we decided to partner with Cass Technical High School in Midtown Detroit. Founded in 1907, Cass Tech is the oldest of Detroit's elite magnet schools. And in a city marred by urban blight, Cass Tech is in the most beautiful school building I have ever seen. It is phenomenal. 85% of their students are Black and 4% are Hispanic. And 60% of the students qualify for free or reduced price lunch. And that suggests that they have a much higher level of poverty than most schools in the state. And yet Cass Tech students are held to a very high standard. But it always starts in the fall with a panel discussion held at Cass Tech, usually for several hundred interested students. And here, the Dean of Admissions talks about what it takes to get into medical school. And then other faculty and students and trainees talk about their own paths to medicine. They talk about the obstacles they had to overcome and the sacrifices they had to make. And then we have a chance to mingle with the students afterwards. So it's a lot of fun. This gentleman in this picture is Dr. John Carruthers. He's the chairman of internal medicine at the University of Michigan. Important guy, also a Cass Tech graduate. And the lovely young woman here is Dr. Lakeisha Marshall. She's one of our trainees in anesthesia who graduated Cass Tech at age 14. I know, classic underachiever. But it's extremely important for the students to be able to meet people like this who are alumni from their school and have been successful in medicine. It just makes the idea of a career in medicine, being a doctor, just seem real. So most of the activities do take place at the medical school or the hospital. So once each month, starting in the fall, the students will come to Ann Arbor by bus and participate in hands-on activities and discussions that are designed to, kind of give them a sense of what it's like to be a doctor. But I remember the first day the students came on the big blue bus, and it was early in the morning. It had been a long trip from Detroit, and they were tired, and like a lot of teenagers, kind of sullen. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to be awful. These kids are not going to be into it. And I was really depressed for a few moments. But then, as soon as they came in and they put on those white coats, like something changed. Their faces lit up, and they were just totally engaged at that point. And for me, that moment, was tremendous. So the rest of that day, they practiced clinical exam skills with the medical students in the mock exam rooms. They learned how to take vital signs, and they learned how to listen to heart and lung sounds, and they checked for reflexes. And then they sort of discovered how we as physicians use those physical exam signs to diagnose disease. So pretty useful. Another really cool day is career day. So they come and they spend an entire morning shadowing a physician in the clinic with real patients. And it's always one of the highest rated days because, they're really immersed in the life of a physician. And so for the rest of that day, we take them to other parts of the hospital so they can learn about alternative careers in healthcare. So occupational physical therapy. They learn about nursing. And they learn about a career as a radiology technologist. So we try to give them a whole sort of full package. In the wintertime, to sort of break up the winter doldrums, we bring them to the Clinical Simulation Center. This is a state-of-the-art simulation center that we use for all of our own residents. Here they practice laparoscopic surgery skills using the box trainers. They take their turn on the robotic surgery simulator. I mean, how cool is that? And the whole time, they're proctored by our surgery residents. And you have to understand, this is a very special experience. We really reserve the simulation center for our trainees. Even the medical students really don't get to spend much time there. And it's fun. So here they learn CPR, they learn how to use the automatic defibrillator machine, just in case somebody goes into cardiac arrest in front of them. The Cass Tech students are all set, so you're safe there. They also get to practice resuscitation skills using the interactive SimMan under the tutelage of one of our emergency department physicians. And the SimMan is awesome. So it talks to you, you hear his heartbeat, he coughs, he vomits. I mean, like who wouldn't want that at home, And these kids get to do that. So that is incredibly special. So then, in the spring, we bring the kids to the human anatomy lab where they practice dissection on cadavers. Okay, they don't really do that, but that would be awkward. But they do learn about human anatomy from our faculty and through the examination of these plastinated organs. So it's almost as good, and that day is really fun. So we also have an entire lecture series on a variety of topics like global health. We talk about careers in basic science, and we talk about racial healthcare inequities. And at each of the events, the medical students lead group activities to make sure that the kids get their blood pumping while still learning about a health-related topic. So the second component to Doctors of Tomorrow is the capstone project. So starting in the fall, the students break up into groups of 4 or 5, and they begin work on a research project. And they work on these projects all during the year with the help of their teachers and also our medical students. And obviously these are a great introduction to the research process, and that's important. But we don't want them to just focus on the mechanics of looking up a disease. We want them to focus on how this disease affects their community specifically. And we want them to think about ways in which they can mitigate the effects of disease in their own neighborhoods, even as students. So for example, the group working on HIV, they came up with this idea of making an online video to teach other students about safe sex practices. And the capstone projects culminate at the end of the year with an oral presentation at Cass Tech in front of their teachers and parents and other students. And let me just tell you, these presentations, we're always blown away by the quality. You really have to step back and just be like, these guys are, freshmen in high school. It's incredible. But by far and away, the most important part of Doctors of Tomorrow is the one-on-one mentorship. So each Cass Tech student is assigned a first-year medical student mentor. And this is somebody who visits with them when they come to the university and when the students go to Cass Tech to help with the capstone projects. But the students can also contact them during the week for help with their homework or questions about getting into college or whatever. And for the students, these mentors are, obviously role models, but really they can relate to one another. Both the mentor and the mentee are first-year students, and they're both dealing with a lot of the same stressors and a lot of the same anxieties. And our mentees have told us that the fact that these medical students are willing to break away from their studies and spend time with them makes them feel valued, and it makes them feel like we're invested in their future, which we are. Because of a grant we got this summer, we were able to provide 5 paid internships for students to help engage in their community. And they worked in basic science labs, they interned in city government, they worked with community service groups throughout Detroit. And then they sort of discussed their experiences with the new Cass Tech students who were in part of the Doctors of Tomorrow last month. And these summer internships were a very important opportunity for these students to get out of their comfort zone, to stretch themselves, and it gave them confidence as they developed new leadership skills. So our focus currently is on engaging graduates of the program. But really, these students remain invested in the program themselves. For example, April McDonald, who you'll see in the upper right-hand corner, she's a Cass Tech sophomore now, and she approached me because she wanted to start a peer support program that would pair graduates of the program with current students. So these kids are already looking for ways to pay back what they got. So just imagine for a second, what do you think April McDonald will do for her community when she becomes a doctor? Right? That's why we do this program. And looking towards, we don't expect that this is going to be a quick fix for the problem of lack of diversity in healthcare. But by forming longitudinal partnerships with these high-achieving students, we can increase the chances that they'll become the future leaders of healthcare. And as we look to their future, we hope that Doctors of Tomorrow will become a guiding framework for other pipeline programs at institutions across the country. Because one program in Detroit isn't going to necessarily change things. But programs at 124 medical schools across the country, well, that can make a difference. And we've already seen an effect on the kids that we've worked with. For example, we held focus groups last year with current and former students to help us develop their curriculum. And one of the students said, that Dr. Finks, he's really goofy. If he can be a doctor, so can I. And you wouldn't think that that would really be a compliment, but I took it as one because it meant that we had made the idea of becoming a doctor seem real and something obtainable. But you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to give final say to the Doctors of Tomorrow.
My name is Theo Chillis.
My name is Elizabeth Garcia.
I am Ainsley Woodward Jr.
My name is Jordan Gregory.
My name is Monique. Can you start over? And my name is Monique Jaw.
My name is Amay Smith.
My name is Rico Ozuna Harrison.
I never knew what doctors really did behind those waiting room doors. I was literally 2 feet away from the patient of whom the procedure was being performed on. From that point forward, almost my whole perspective of being a doctor completely changed.
It was my first field trip as a member of the Doctors of Tomorrow. It was my first time sitting in a classroom at the University of Michigan. I realized that these people were not just showing us how to become doctors, they actually wanted us to be the doctors of tomorrow.
All my life, I've been wanting to be a doctor since I was like 6, 7 years old.
I always wanted to be a doctor. I just love working with people, and I wanted to help people.
It gave me more choices. It gave me more opportunities to think about, and it really helped me open up my mind. It surprised me that one single day can affect someone so much.
We were receiving a lecture from a professor at University of Michigan. She specialized in neurological stem cell research, and that really caught my interest. That was never really, I never really knew about that until that day.
Have you ever got so excited and you didn't know what to do? I was just so excited at the anatomy lab.
That day, when we walked into the room where the simulations were, I couldn't wait my turn. I easily did it, and Dr. Finks just stood there shocked. Dominique did the same, and we both were called champions.
After the program, they told us that there was an opportunity for a summer internship, and I applied and I got accepted.
I realized that the job of being a doctor is exciting, it's nail-biting, and it's rewarding.
The Doctor of Tomorrow program just showed me how much more I gotta work, how much harder I gotta work to become that doctor.
I really had no idea who I wanted to be, and I was like, wow, is this real?
If the purpose or goal of Doctors of Tomorrow was to influence minorities to attend the University of Michigan and a career in the medical field, they did what they wanted to do.